Let's go. Let's have a good one.
We're live now.
Oh, awesome. Here we go. Let's roll into it, ladies and gentlemen. Talofa lava, maloli lei, ni sambole vanaka, kia ora ana, kia ora, and warm Pacific greetings to everybody tonight. Welcome into another Prepare Pacific Talanoa discussion. I know it's been, I think it's been about 2 weeks since we last had one, but we're back. And, you know, the COVID situation is still very real in our communities at the moment. I think, you know, sometimes we might see, oh yeah, cases are decreasing as we go, which is great news, but the need to still go out there and get tested is, we still need to do that, especially in our Pacific communities. But tonight we really wanted to look at mental health and the well-being space for our Pacific people. And things that we've heard on the ground is that there's a lot of need out there. There's a lot of anxiety. There is a lot of struggles that our Pacifica people are facing, which is why we reached out to our Pacifica mental health professionals to join us this evening and really help guide us through this mental health and well-being phase. And really what we're after tonight is that we're after some tools and some advice around how do we navigate this mental health space. Obviously, we know that this week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and we will be going into touching on that theme of that a little bit later. But first, let me introduce you to our panel. The only reason why I was doing a kind of an extended introduction was to wait for more people to come and join us on the line, online. So let's start introducing our panel this evening. So Chief Executive of LEVA, Denise Kingi Ulu'ave. Thank you very much, Denise, for joining us this evening.
Talofa lava.
Also from Lotofale, Auckland District Health Board, we've got Mr. Fred Fata. He's back with us. Malo, brother.
Malo lava so for Johnson. Kalofa everybody. Thanks again for having me. Kaya mo le avangoa.
And from the Waitemata District Health Board, Dwaine Faletanoai, thank you very much for joining us. Talofa.
Talofa lava, everyone.
Right, so first off, before we get deep into the discussion and as more people kind of arrive into tonight's live Talanoa, I just want to check in with each of you around your own mental well-being. You know, lots of you have to deal with people that have their own problems in a professional capacity by working with clients and helping people, but you know, at some point you've also got to help yourself, right? So how do you look after your own mental health and well-being? And I'd love to start with you, Fred.
Yep, nah, look, I'm a little bit more prepared, I think, this time around psychologically. I mean, I'm learning off last lockdown. I'm able to sort of set myself, keep positive and you know, focus on, you know, present rather than too far ahead. I know this time I'm trying not to catastrophize things a bit less, and you know, keep tabs on my own fear. You know, I don't want to read too much into the media, because I know that you know, I think me as a father, we're trying to stay vigilant, but we don't want to be debilitated by our fear. I mean, like last time we were real, you know, unsure. You know, we're just trying to keep normal life at home and provide a calm, nurturing environment for my little boy, my 1-year-old. And you know, my wife's an essential worker, so we were trying to, you know, manage our anxiety around him going back to daycare. But you know, we try to keep a routine and keep it healthy. I know we're a bit more sophisticated now with keeping in touch with people that you can't go and see, or you can't naturally just pop down and visit. So I think that was good, because my mum, we got her a phone and we were able to set her up with how to connect and keep in touch with my little boy. So now we're a bit more prepared this time, Johnson.
Cool. No, that's awesome. Awesome to hear. Denise, how about you? Especially, I guess, you know, as the Chief Executive of LEVA, you're also having to lead an organization, as well as, you know, maybe deal with people that are struggling too. But how do you look after you?
Thanks, Johnson. Well, I think like most people in New Zealand, Johnson, to be honest, there's times when you just feel completely exhausted. We went through a lot with the first lockdown, and then to have that reemergence of the virus, it shakes you, and that it increases that uncertainty about the future, and so you do, it has to affect you. And for me, I live in Makitu as well, so I was living down here in the Bay of Plenty, and my staff, which most of them live in South Auckland, I was really worried about them up there in South Auckland, particularly because that's where the virus was. So having to draw on all of your training and all of your all of those coping strategies that you've learned over the years, that's what helped me through it. I had to really take hold of my my thoughts when they got out of control with worry, and just bring it back down to reality, and looking at what can I control and what can't I control in this situation, and just focusing on what's important to me and what's in my sphere of control. And so, just relaxing, focusing on what's important, all of those sorts of things really, really helps.
Thank you for sharing, and let's hear from you, Dwaine, on that too.
Absolutely. It's a good question. I echo the sentiments mentioned by Dee and Brett there. It isn't an easy time. It's certainly been a tough old year in terms of well-being for people we serve. But how do I stay on top of all? Good question. I'd like to summarize them maybe using 3 Fs. The familiar 3 Fs of faith. Definitely faith has got me through, Johnson and panel, helping to stay on top of things, that being faith in God.
Oh, let's hope we didn't lose Dwaine. And we might have to. Oh, he's gone. Yep. Dwaine will come back. He'll come back and join us. But and we'll follow up. You're back with us, Dwaine?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the 2 other Fs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the 2 other Fs as well. So I see Dwayne's joined us. So
Dwaine, yeah.
We got Faith. We got Faith. What's your other 2 Fs?
Before any more technical difficulties, that was just friends and family. So faith, family, friends, and a bit of exercise. A dab of exercise to top it off. So
3 Fs and an E. I get it. Cool, awesome. And I just want to reiterate before we move on around faith, and faith has been massive, and it is a massive part of our communities. Just to think about, there was in COVID response around how churches really got involved in that space too, and continue to still get involved as well. Now, the last time we had a mental health, mental well-being panel was actually just before we went into the second lockdown. And even then, which was maybe we're looking at a month, probably more, even back then, there were some serious concerns for the mental well-being of our Pasifika people, because we're talking about post-COVID. But now we've come out of our second lockdown. I really want to ask our panel this evening, are things worse than before? Are things worse than what happened post first lockdown? And just to get some real raw experiences from our panel this evening. And let's start with you, Denise. From what you're hearing within your organizations, is it worse?
Naturally with a re-emergence, as mentioned before, that there is an increase in distress and anxiety and depression, due more this time, not so much the fear, but I think this time now it's the uncertainty, because we know it can happen again, and so people are just uncertain about what the future holds now. And when you look at what's happening around the world globally, And it's, you know, there's other countries who thought they had got on top of the virus saw a re-emergence, and so that's left us in a situation, and some people feel paralysed by that, and so there's definitely an increase in anxiety and depression out there.
Fred, if you can add to that, Fred.
Yeah, I mean, I can't categorically say whether it's worse or better, but I just know that, you know, from who I'm talking to and the families I'm working alongside, I think they're like a little bit more resilient than we give them credit for. You know, I think Pacific communities are adept at adapting. You know, we're proven. I don't know, just a generalization. We're you know, we're a community that's you know, able to survive challenges. You know, we've faced a lot of adversities. I mean, even as recent as last year with this the measles over in SAR, but you know, we're pretty resourceful given the, you know, least amount of opportunity and you know, what's available to us. But I think, you know, I think this time around, some of us are a bit more, you know, accepting of this. This is now the world, you know, and more importantly, we've got to adapt. You know, we're not ones to just sit back and let it happen to us. We kind of rise to the occasion, you know. But you know, we can't say whether financially families are better off or worse compared to before. I just know that Pacific families are like, we're conditioned to be creative and resourceful, regardless of how disadvantaged or, you know, what we don't have. We're quite strong collectively. You know, as a community, I think we're going to weather this. You know, we've weathered most crises and tragedies, and I think the only way we're going to do it is the way we always done it together. And you know, like Dwaine said, you know, with trust that God's got us and He's with us through this whole thing, and we'll see the other side of it.
Yeah, well, Dwaine, yeah, are things worse off now for our Pacifica people, especially in the mental health and wellbeing space? Sorry, let me preface that by saying in the mental health and wellbeing space. Yeah.
I believe so. I agree with the our panelists here. We barely got a chance to get over the first lockdown in March, April, and then we all of a sudden hit with the second edition. But you know, those anxieties are certainly always been there and heightened. The anxieties around our vulnerable in our Pacific communities, the underlying health conditions, the respiratory conditions, and also around just the natural way that we as Pacific gather, we commune together. We love our social events and gatherings, and when all those things are closed down, all of a sudden that heightens the anxiety and to whole new levels we haven't seen before, especially this edition that we're currently in. We can only just look to what's happened with the clusters around Central Auckland and South as an example to refer to. So in many ways, I think we're getting some things we're doing a little bit better to ease anxiety, but in the mental health space, a lot of our Pacific communities are just unsure on the communication. It's not always clear. It's a rapidly evolving situation where our Pacific might struggle to keep up. For example, the regulations and the around PPE and how to use it correctly. You know, this is example, the anxiety around when we're supposed to get tested and where, and then how long does it take to get a swab test. So there's lots of things. And of course, as we slip in and out of lockdowns and our churches shut down, we're not able to grieve when we need to grieve for our funerals and stuff. It certainly created a good case for a worse off situation for our people in terms of mental health.
Yeah, well,
and
obviously, sorry, you carry on, Denise.
I think adding to that complexity is the issue around, you know, there's some misinformation that's happening out there about, you know, about the virus and mistrust in the information. The first lockdown, we were all in it together. You know, you felt like that everybody was together. This time there's a fraction. You know, there's people not wanting to go into lockdown. There's people, you know, saying that this is a made-up virus, it's not real, all of those sorts of things. That adds to our stress and our anxiety because we're unsure about what to believe anymore. And so, you know, it's hard for people out there.
Right. Yeah. No, thank you for that, our panelists. And as I mentioned earlier, it is Mental Health Awareness Week, and I guess the theme there is reimagining well-being together. He tirohanga anamata is the theme. So I really want to. Earlier this evening, we put out a question on Prepare Pacific, and we asked, what are some of those questions that the community want to ask our panelists this evening, of course. So I know I've sent through a couple of questions already, but I really want to jump into what the community are asking right now. And one of those questions is, how do we normalize mental health and better facilitate the discussions with our teenagers, with our family, with our friends? Like you were saying, Fred, Dwaine, Fred, looking at friends and family, so just really want to hear from each of you. How do we normalize the mental health and better facilitate those discussions? Dwaine, let's start with you.
Another good question. I think you said it right there, Johnson. Within our own immediate circles of our families and friends, that's a good starting point. Stigma is everywhere in our communities, and often more or less discoverable in our own tight circles. So I think if we start there, try and normalize, have open and frank discussions about it in all seriousness in our own tight circles, we can hopefully start breaking down those bricks or stigma that continue to stack up from the in out. So most certainly, I think we try and break the stereotypes that come through from media or movies or something about mental health, and try and get across the reality of it and the how truly common it is, and really try and normalize it that way, and start in and start spread out.
So let me throw something else in there. What if you don't feel comfortable going to a family member or a friend? For sometimes there might be that there might be that shame about it, and hopefully that's not the case. But if it was, just kind of putting a scenario in there, where else do you suggest people watching could go to if they can't go to friends and family?
Well, there's always that's a very good point, Johnson. It's not always the case in our families and friends, even churches. Often there's a lot of barriers there for whatever reason to communicate openly. But I think hopefully that there is a contact through a social source that you do trust enough, or that someone will have enough confidence to approach, and hopefully that's the right person to be able to open up and lend a listening ear, and then be able to tie like a web and bringing the relevant supports together from there. It's a tough one, but hopefully in the wide expanse of the Pacific community, through the sports, through the extracurricular activities outside of the work, school, family and church, hopefully there is somebody there that might be the right person to reach out to.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Dwaine. Denise, jump in there. How do we normalize it, better facilitate it?
Yeah. So there's a lot of online resources as well, because we do know that people may not feel comfortable talking to family members. So options like the 1737 number, there's always a trained counsellor at the end of that phone line that can refer you, that will listen and talk to you. There's other helplines that are available, and you just need to go to, there's the depression.org. The John Kirwan campaign, and you have also the lowdown, which is for young people, so they can go on there and find all the information that they like as well if they don't feel comfortable talking to anybody. But we do know that there is still stigma and shame there in our communities, and that's why it's good to have Mental Health Awareness Week, because it helps to be able to try and reduce that stigma and shame by informing our communities. The more we're informed, the better and more educated, the more compassionate we can be to somebody. At Laval, what we did, because of this increase in anxiety and depression, we developed a training program called Rebuilding Wellbeing, and that's to help our community members, our non-mental health staff, to identify when the symptoms of anxiety and depression, know how to approach somebody with the right way and have courage to ask the question, and then to where to refer them on to. Because when you have that courage and that confidence, then you can approach somebody in the right way. Because you're right, a lot of people don't access and won't talk about it
Yeah.
to others. But if we can see it, then we can approach them in a way that's respectful and non-judgmental.
Well, Denise, you were talking about depression.org, the lowdown 1737. But can I ask you, what about Pacific services? You alluded to something that Levar's working with as well. What about Pacific services if that people can go to if our bus speaker people don't feel comfortable with those, I guess, what I would classify as mainstream services?
Yep, and we have lots of free mental health in the community, lots of free primary mental health services, and there are a number of them, and I won't be able to list them all here today. But if you want to know where they are and you're closest to you, you ring 1737. They have a directory of all of the services that are close to you, and they can give you all the details that you need to go and find them. But you can also go onto our Levar website. We've got lots of information there about service that are available, both for addictions, for mental health, and for violence prevention.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to you, Fred, shortly. But Denise, just looking at Prepare Pacific, we get lots of direct messages from people that, I guess prime example is looking at food banks. And is it okay if we say, if the easiest way to get in contact is to send a direct message through Levar Facebook page? Is that okay?
Yeah, but what
would you prefer that they go through like 1737 where they can get direct help straight away?
Yeah. 1737 is for mental health issues. The good place to get all of that information about where to go for financial help, for food banks, all of those sorts of things. The Ministry of Pacific Peoples have a great website, and they've got all that COVID information there, all listed out, all up to date. You've got places like Pacifica Futures, the whānau order service, as well as the whānau, Whakatautua. All of those places have got lots of information about all that's available for our communities in terms of not just mental health, but all of the other health needs and social needs.
No, that's great, and I know that we also have these up on the Prepare Pacific website too. But Fred, let's go to you, because obviously you're part of Loto Whale through the Auckland District Health Board, longest running, service for bus speaker in the mental health and wellbeing space. So what's your kind of take on this, bro, about just the normalizing of mental health with friends and family?
Yeah, I mean, I can't emphasize enough from what I've learned in my time working in communities with limited amount of services available or accessibility to this or that. I can't emphasize enough how important your own natural resources are, like your own family and friends and community. Like I know what we're saying, that there's people out there that can possibly be a support that you need in that time, but long term and sustainably, it's your own natural environment. And I guess being Pacific, we can't underestimate how forward thinking we are. I mean, 10 years ago we wouldn't be saying that. We would 10, 20 years we would be saying, well, be careful what you say. People aren't on the same journey as we are, and as open-minded. But we've got to stop as professionals, trying to like hide behind that. We need to really advocate, and I'm talking from where we're working with the psychotic, the really unwell, and their families. So we know, I personally know that we can only do so much, but if we are able to just empower and give autonomy back to families and communities, that's where the change is going to come from within. So we kind of underestimate people as well, and in their vulnerability and in their fragile state. We can't automatically say, oh, be careful. We've got to tell them as well, and try and help them find their owners and give responsibility to swallow your pride and reach out, because the more people that reach out, the easier it is for the next person to go, well, they hit rock bottom and they reached out. You know, the community that you have, like Dwaine said, is far-reaching. We're not just your mom and dad or your wife and your brothers and that. There's cousins, there's friends of cousins, there's like Polotu said last time, people at your gym. But those natural environment, but people in your inner circle or in your and community, those are the ones that are gonna get you through it and then see you on the other side. You know, we've got to do what we normally wouldn't be comfortable doing, and be courageous. So then we've got people that are in high profile, you know, media platforms that are coming out and starting to, you know, all own it and say, look, I have gone through this and that gives, you know, courage to the rest of our community. But we can't keep hiding behind, you know, oh, you can be anonymous and ring. No. Let's start empowering families to help themselves and help, you know, their loved ones.
Yeah. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Which I think for some people is easier said than done. And I acknowledge that. I just want to quickly say, somebody had sent through, just looking down here on Facebook, someone said that they encourage people as well to use 1737, and the feedback has been really good and it has helped them. So it's great that somebody has given us that feedback this evening. I'm gonna throw a scenario in there, and I think largely because we're hearing about lots of job losses, we're hearing about domestic violence, and we're hearing about lack of food. And I know in lots of these areas it is a social service kind of issue as well. But in terms of, let's focus on mental health, and let me throw in a scenario around how you help a father who can't provide for his family because he's lost work or he's lost hours as well. And, you know, what do you say to families who maybe don't have enough to eat, and also a mother or father who are struggling with domestic violence? I know I've thrown you a loaded scenario, but in terms of advice for people that could be or know of people that are in these situations of loss of work, food issues, loss of income, and also domestic violence space, what would you say to them in terms of mental well-being? I know I've thrown you a lot, so Dwaine, as you process that, what would you say?
I would say, look, it's about refocusing on the good things that we do have, even though a lot's been stripped away and a lot's been decreased, and unfortunately impacted on. He's lost a job. The poor father, he's got kids, you know, and I can relate to being a father, but I can't relate to losing a job. So I would never say, what I wouldn't say is like, no, bro, I understand, but most certainly, and I'm sure Dee and Fred may be the same, would acknowledge the hardship, the adversity that's very real for this father and for many others. And hopefully, though we try and forget the past, there's many things going on for the present that we can still be thankful for. So it's hopefully trying to grasp those little things that we've still got in the midst of adversity and hanging on to those and putting some future hope from that, springboarding that. And then, look, I'd be trying my very best to connect them to the right supports. And both Fred and Dee have mentioned a host of community organisations, supports outside of family and friends, or in addition to family and friends that might be able to help.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Dwaine. I'm gonna jump over to you, Fred. What would be your advice there?
Yeah, man. Look, I don't necessarily have the answer to that also, and I know you know, we see a lot of it in our jobs, but from experience, the only, you know, there is no real step-by-step magic solution to it. We just have to be there with them. I know there's advice out there that we could offer, but unless you're actually in it and experiencing it, it's kind of insulting to go in and try and tell someone you know, that it's going to get better. you know, some people just need to, you know that there's someone there with them. So we've seen it where we just don't have the resources or the guidelines to get them out of these certain things. I think life is just going to throw you some hardships that will be better shared. The burden will be better shared if there's people there. So I know that me as a support person in my time in the community, I've just been alongside. I can't necessarily fight your fight for you or give you the right words or answers. I just need to help see through it. So I can only say it or explain it or you know, demonstrate it better when I'm actually in with that person. So say for instance, let's talk about domestic violence. I'm not going to change someone's mindset, or I can just support them to realize that themselves. The answer's always within, but sometimes you just need people there. And I know that mental health, it's not a linear connect the dots journey. It fluctuates, it's dynamic, but having someone with you is like having just someone reassuring you it's going to be better on the other side of it. And it usually does. Life always organically, you know, finds light during the most turbulent of times. And if I could liken it to one of our Pacific models, you know, there's a Fata and a Papau, you know, that the outrigger, that's all we are. I mean, I'm not going to be able to like guide you where you should go. That's on you. But at least we're keeping you afloat. You know, we're there to walk alongside your journey and keep you from capsizing. Because sometimes in the most tragic or crisis moments, you just need someone there. And I'm not gonna tell you, I just tell them it's gonna be all right, and we're gonna be doing this together. And I know that with people and their families and their natural supports, that's more available and more accessible than, you know, relying on external out there. There's supports out there, don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to like nail home the message that, you know, Pacific people have got all the resilience that we need from within, and if we can have people surround yourself with good supports, you know, you're better equipped to weather the storm.
Yeah, I kind of hear where you're going, and that's I've kind of noticed the theme of self-determination with you, Fred, this evening. So yeah, but thank you very much for that. And Denise, yeah, I mean, might have forgotten about what the question was, but we're just looking at you know, people in hard spaces.
Yeah, and you're right, it is a loaded question. And you know, what can you say to people in a brief Zoom that respectfully acknowledges that the heartache and the struggle that they're going through? You know, it's really, really difficult. But I think, you know, my fellow panel members here have done a wonderful job of answering that question. And I'd just like to add that, you know, sometimes when you're in these situations, is sometimes like Dwaine said, looking for positivity, but looking, you know, trying to think back in times when you struggled and you thought you wouldn't get through it, but you did, you know, and try and give them that hope and that confidence, you know, no matter how small it was, the issue that you were facing, you got through it, and just holding on to that hope for the future, that things will pass and that, you know, things will get better. But again, like Fred and Dwaine says, you know, have mentioned, you're not in this alone. You know, there is help out there, and there's no shame in reaching out for help.
Yeah. Now I'm going to start to wrap it up here, and just really my last question to everybody this evening is really looking at how do we encourage people to get help right now, and people that are finding it hard right now. What is your last advice around? You have alluded it, and we've weaved it through this evening, but just really wanting to hit home in this last kind of response from each and every one of you around just some advice around helping people now, especially considering the COVID climate that we're in. And what would you say to people finding it hard right now, and how they can get help? Let me start with you, Dwaine.
Thank you, Johnson. Look, I think it's about looking at what is the new norm. Looking at what's the new norm for us, because it has been a year like no other. Go centuries back, I'm sure there's been nothing like this. And so what is the new norm? What does it look like? And I think it's about painting and making sure, well, cementing really, the importance of well-being and what that looks like for me and what that looks like for you. So what is well-being and how is it going to look for the future? So I think that's a really important message. It's really the message of the year, isn't it? It's been a year all about well-being beyond this week. So I think, yeah, hopefully in getting people to, and starting with ourselves, to really treasure and own that mental health is an important thing for me and important thing for them. So learn to treasure your mental health, seeing it as something to really hold on to and protect and grow and develop.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, how do we get people to seek help? Well, if we can spread those messages far and wide through our community networks and show and create a united front that mental health is important, well-being is important. It's important to us. It's important to all our families, and hopefully from there we can see some inroads. And hopefully from there we can see our communities accessing services like those mentioned, and the services that Fred, Dee and I all work for. We're all mental health. Loto Fale, Takanga Fohe. I mean, this is what we're here for, and we'd love our communities to, to at least give it a try. It's never got to be easy walking through the door of any health service for the cost or for the stigma, whatever. But as we've talked all night, for the last 30 odd 40 minutes in the dark here with my one light bulb that's working, we've talked about normalizing it and breaking down the stigma. So I think it's always going to be a starting point for us, I believe. And it's not a new issue. Stigma's never been a new issue, but it's an ongoing one. But I think we've got a lot more wiser about how we might go about dissolving that. So yeah, I mean, a few thoughts. Some may come later.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, you and your one light bulb. So thank you. Fred, brother, let's hear from you. Your last piece of advice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty one track tonight. I've stayed on the one message that I think we gotta start swallowing our pride and just look to those that are the closest to you, reaching out and just being transparent about how urgent things are. There's no time, but more so than now, that we will understand how hard things are, how difficult things must be. So, like Dwaine said, we've got to prioritize our psychological well-being. If we can't take care of our minds and our spirits, how are we going to provide for those that need us the most, or those that are closest to you and love you? And I think, the onus is also on our families to be kind, kind and try and see past what you would normally, usually go to your default thinking. That's all good in normal times, but right now we've got to be a little bit more generous and available to those that will maybe ring you up one day and, man, I need some money, or could you come over and help? I think if we're going to be courageous, then it goes well to saying, well, look, you need help. Do you want us to come with you to that thing, to that appointment, and being strong for you when you're not strong? And then sometimes we just gotta bite the bullet and say, you don't have to always have your best foot forward. You've just got to own these times as well. And if any, now's a perfect opportunity to say to those that are close to you, yeah, how are you doing? Because I'm not doing too well. And I think with that conversation, the more and more our supports hear it, the more they feel that they're able to do it when it's their turn. You know, we reciprocate everything in our community, right, in our culture. Yeah. So reach out to that resource now, because one day,
yeah, and I think
you might be that
it's something
person.
that we always, and it's something that's always being said every day. You know, give that person a call, check up on your family members, and the more we say it, for some people, maybe like, I heard that yesterday, but it could be the first time somebody has heard it today, right?
Yeah.
So, Denise, if we can, hear last words from you.
Yeah, and thank you. And I agree with Fred. You know, serving others is a really important value within our Pacifica families and communities. And in order to do that, we need to look after our own mental well-being so that we're strong and we're able to attend to others' needs. So I think we need, it is important that we have some really strong and clear and consistent messaging around, it's normal to feel worried, it's normal to feel frustrated and uncertain in these times. But if these thoughts and feelings are getting out of control, please, it's really important that you seek help and support for those. And if you can't do it for yourself, do it for your loved ones. So, just reach out if you are struggling. But most importantly, we need to be informed and we need to be equipped with the skills and the knowledge and the confidence to be able to identify when somebody's struggling, to know how to approach them, and have the courage, and then how to respectfully and non-judgmentally help them to open up and then get the support that they need. It's up to every one of us to take responsibility for that, because you never know when you're going to need those skills. It's better to have them and not need them than to not have them when you need them. So let's
thank you very much.
For people, know that you're not alone and people do care.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that, and also thank you for everyone that has there's lots of comments here in the comment section, and panelists, when you get a point, get some time, there's some great feedback for each and every one of you that people really appreciate the encouraging words that each of you have given tonight. So thank you very much, and I've definitely learned a whole lot tonight too around what I need to do for my own friends and family, and even for myself. So really want to thank each and every one of you tonight for taking the time out to join us this evening. And thank you to your families as well for letting us steal you for about 45 minutes to an hour. So just everybody out there that is watching, thank you very much for joining us. And it is Mental Health and Awareness Week, but we know that we are celebrating it this week, but it's something that continues on 365 days of the year, right? So thank you for your work, Denise, Fred, and Dwaine. Thank you for the work that you do in our communities, and we look forward to touching base again, because I'm going to come knocking again, because mental health isn't going away anytime soon. So have a good evening, and thank you very much
Johnson.
for joining us.
Thank you, panel.
God bless everybody. Aloha.
Thank